Today's video is going to be a comparison video. We're going to compare the Nikon 2-500 5.6 with the F to Z adapter, because we're adapting it to a Z camera, to the brand new Nikon Z 180-600mm 5.6 to 6.3. So if you currently own a 2-500 and you're thinking about upgrading to the 180-600, or you're in the market for one of the new Nikon's more affordable zooms, well, that's what today's video is going to be. So let's talk about it. Let's start out with these two lenses on paper, and we'll start with the 2-500 lens first. This lens came out in 2015, I believe it was October when it first came out. And this lens is a 2-500mm lens at 5.6. That is fantastic. Being at 5.6 aperture all the way through the whole range is really, really nice. Of course, it's an F-mount lens, so it needs an F to Z adapter. The minimum focus distance on this guy is 7.2 feet, not too bad. Has 4.5 stops of image stabilization. It uses a silent wave motor, same as that 500 PF has in it. So it'll be interesting to see if we get any clunks like we did the 500mm lens if you watch that review. This lens is 10.5 inches without the adapter. With the adapter, it's 11.5 inches. And that is when it is in its collapsed state, because this is a externally zooming lens. So when you get out here, this thing is 15.5 inches. Look at that. It's comparison to these two guys. So it is a long boy once it's extended. And it weighs in at just under 5.1 pounds, and it lists at $13.99 US. But at times, like when I found it, you can find it on sale for about $1,000 sometimes. So let's move over to the 180-600. Well, of course, this lens just came out about a couple of months ago. It is 180mm to 600mm, 5.6 to 6.3. It is a Z-mount lens, so it is native. Its length is 12.5 inches, and it has an STM motor. It's really, really quiet and really, really fast for what we tested before. It weighs in at 4.5 pounds, and it comes in at $16.99 US. So those are the specs of these two lenses. So what's the differences real quickly after we read those off? Well, for starters, the Nikon 180-600 is about 2/3 a pound lighter once you have the F to Z adapter on it with the 2-500, so it is a little bit lighter. As far as length goes, yes, the 2-500 is shorter, even with the F to Z, but once you extend it to 500, this guy's almost 4 inches longer than the new Z to 180. As far as image stabilization, the new Z lens has one more stop of image stabilization, or VR as Nikon calls it. As I said earlier, this is a silent wave motor, and this one has the STM motor. We'll have to see when we start testing it. Do we hear the clunks in this lens like we did with the 500 PF? We know this 180-600 is pretty silent. And as far as the button controls on the two lenses, the 2-500 has your manual auto, full to 6 meters to infinity. You can actually turn the VR image stabilization on and off, and you can change from normal to sport on the lens. As far as the Nikon 180-600, you have auto manual and you have full to 6 meters to infinity. And you also have function buttons on the lens, which you can assign to a variety of functions. To change the VR on and off, and to do from normal and sport mode, you have to go into the camera body, your Nikon Z camera body, to change that for the Nikon 180-600. As far as the lens collar on these two and the feet, they're pretty much the same with one exception. The 180-600 has lens mount straps, which is really, really nice. The 2-500 doesn't, because if you go to the 2-500, the only way to put your camera strap on the lens itself is to attach it to the foot on the bottom on the mounting screw hole. And if you do that, you can't put your Arca Swiss plates on there. So that's the difference in those two lenses. But that's how these two lenses stack up on paper and the physical characteristics of these two lenses. So let's go out in the field, and what we're going to do, we're going to test the autofocus, we're going to test the hit rate, we're going to look at the color rendition of these lenses, and I'll tell you how they feel, and how they balance, and how they work on a gimbal, and how they work handheld. So I'm going to get out there and go do that. Talk to you guys here in a bit. All right, Seward has been a bust. When I got down to Seward, it was projecting like 10-mile-an-hour winds, which would be fine, and cold, you know, single digits, teens, low teens there. So I knew it'd be cold, but I knew I'd have animals still. I don't always do. But when I got down to Seward, it was blowing 40, 50 mile an hour gusts straight down out of the head of the bay, straight across the harbor, which is where I really like to go, the harbor, walk the harbor docks and stuff like that, looking for sea life and stuff. Well, with all that wind, no cormorants, no seals. So all I really have was crows and pigeons, rock pigeons. That's all I had really to photograph. Well, I went ahead and photographed some of those to showcase the 200 to 500 and the 180 to 600. So what we're doing now, we're leaving Seward. We actually already left Seward. I'm in the past now, and it is -10, and I saw -17 back through there, which is really cold. So what I'm doing is I'm heading back towards Anchorage, and I'm going to stop at Conservation Center and get some shots of animals with the 2 lenses, and we'll go do our duck test in Anchorage. I'm going to finish going through the pass and get out of here because it's cold right now where I'm standing. Very, very, very cold. So let's go head over there. I'll show you a few of those shots that are coming, probably video and just shots. Then we'll go back to the house after we do the ducks, and we'll talk about the autofocus hit rate, the image quality, all that kind of stuff, the color of everything. So let's go do that and get back in the truck because it's cold. Talk to you here in a bit. Let's talk a little bit about internally zooming lenses and externally zooming lenses and gimbal work. So internally zooming lens, once I have it on here, the balance is balanced, we're good. With the externally zoomed lens, with the way the elements are, especially in this 2 to 500, the elements are a little more, they're not as far back here, they're a little more in the middle. So I've got this balance right now extended. But as soon as I zoom this backwards, this should drop back this way. So let's zoom back out to 200, and you'll see what happens. zoom back out to 500, my lens will balance back. So that's the problem with externally zooming lenses, especially the 2 to 500, where the elements are not sitting right here above the center part of the foot. They're sitting out in here as far as these elements go. So even if I move back to 400, not too bad. Let's go to 300 and she drops. So at about 400 to 500, it balances okay. So let's get some shots now. We are back at the house after shooting those ducks, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the EVF footage of these two lenses to look at the AF acquisition. So let's get into the 2 to 500 first to look at its EVF footage. And in this footage, the first couple ducks I'll show you here is pretty reminiscent how the lens acted all the time, how quickly it went to the animal and that type of stuff. So let's look at that footage. So you'll see our duck is out of focus now. So let's go ahead and get it started. There it goes. Going to the background, we'll come to another duck. And there you go. So how those two acted, again, it acquired the duck, it got the duck fairly fast. But what I want to show you is how fast, right? So we want to look at something here real quick. Let's get to this duck here. All right. Run this back half speed like we always like to do. So let's play her. Go frame by frame here. Out of focus, out of focus. When it goes when we're hitting the box, we hit the box. We're still out of focus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we're in at 12. So we're about 12 frames to get in there. So let's go find the other duck now and see how long it took for it to do it. All right, there's the duck, completely out of focus. We went all the way to the background, coming back to the duck. So we'll see when we hit the box how long it takes it to get into lock. Okay, so you see how it's changing. I've already hit the button, but the gold box hadn't come on. So the AF hadn't seen the bird yet, but it's seeing something out there to go focus on. Because what you remember, the first thing it does is looking for an animal, and then after that, it says, like your old autofocus, it goes in that mode and says, where is something that's, what's the most dominant thing in the frame for the autofocus to go grab? And that's what it's trying to do here at the beginning. If you don't see the gold box, that's what's happening. If the gold box comes up, it's because the white box, the AF acquisition, has seen what it wanted to see, a duck or a head or something. So we're out. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, I think we're in. Yeah, we're in at 9 on that one. So 12 and 9. And then it jumps right to the eye. So his head, it jumps to what it thinks is the eye. All right, let's go back on this one. See how long it took also. It's cute, scratching his head. Okay, out of focus. You see how it started to come in focus? So that's when I must have hit the button or the lens was trying to do something. So let's call that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think it's about 8 or 9. Let's try this again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Probably about 8 on that one. 8 or 9. 8 to 9. So now we're focused here close to this bird. So let's go out here and we're going to focus on the next two birds. So they're out of focus, right? Picking them up. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like about 4, 3 to 4. Found the head tucked in there pretty good. Let's back that up. Maybe it's more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It really is 9 on that one. But it's, again, we're going frame by frame at 24 frames a second. So that's really not that much. That's a fraction of a second. Remember that. So let's run it back in real time just so you can see it, see how quick that is. So I'm going to hit the button. Here we go. See, you just zip. I'm nitpicking. I'm going frame by frame to look at the acquisition because we want to compare it to the 180 to 600. All right. Here's our duck again. So after we look at this one, how long it took. we will look at the 180 to 600 because I have the same exact duck in the same position, which is really good. So the focus is somewhere way in the background. All right, and let's see how long it took. All right, he's still out of focus. Haven't hit the button yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So at 8, 9, at 8 is where it is. So 8 is on that one. 9 on the body, 8, 9 on the body, maybe 9. 8 still on the tail, like I said before, 9, and 10 hits the head. So that's when we're in focus there. So about 8 to 10, we had the worst. We saw 12 in the initial one. So now let's go to the 1 to 800 and see what it looks like. All right, here's the same duck. His head's to the left, so to the right this time. So let's see when it happens. So it's seeing the duck before I even hit the button. So that wouldn't happen on the other lens when it was just blurred out, that is. On the other duck, the same exact duck, sometimes it would do this box, but most times it took longer to get the box. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. 4 is pretty good. 5's for sure there. So that's pretty good. So we got it in 5. So we're about 3 frames quicker on that. Let's look at this one. So this is a lot closer subject. 1, 2, 3. It's already there, and the box is not even hit it. 4, 5. So it went to the body on this, didn't go to the eye. There it is on 6 is where it hit. So pretty quick. Okay, here we go. We went to the background, completely out of focus. Let's see how long it takes to find this duck. Looks like it's got his head down in the water. Looks like it's hitting it there. 1, it's doing so already. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Already in focus at 6, 7, 8. So the gold box came up at 9, but the duck was in focus at 5 to 6 on that one. So again, it's about the same. It's around 5 frames at a 24 frames a second. Again, let's watch this back in real time. Watch how fast it is. I mean, it's just not, it's a fraction of a second we're talking about. So we're nitpicking here. So most of these I'm seeing are 4 to 5, and this one is about 8 to 12 where it's going. So an increase there. But again, both of them are doing really well. All right, let's look at this one real quick. 1, 2, 3. Looks like it's there. It's on the back duck. 4. So it's 4 on that one. And then 5th and 6th frame, you get the lock on the eye. So within 3 to 4 again on this one. Remember, that's 3, 4 frames out of 24 frames a second. Pretty quick, pretty quick. Let's watch that back in real time, see what it looks like. I mean, that's just like that. So really, really good autofocus. And that is the AF acquisition of these two lenses. The 180 to 600 is just a little bit faster than the 2 to 500, which makes sense because this is an adapted lens. This is a native lens, just like we saw with the 500 PF. All right, now let's look at the hit rate of these two lenses. And we're going to start with the 2 to 500 first. We're going to look at a burst of images to see how well the autofocus acquired. So let's start with this little mallard hen here. So the first one looks to me like it's not quite there. It looks like it's better back here in the back feathers of the bird, back in here, as opposed to the head. The head looks out. So it looks like it's front focusing. Now, what could be happening here, you know, sometimes we saw that autofocus in the EVF footage hit the body, then it would go to the head. And again, when I was talking about depth of field, at 500 millimeters, 5.6, this depth of field is real narrow. So it's going to the body, that head's just a little bit back, you know, and that could cause it to be out of focus. So right now, we're not on the eye, but we are focused on the bird. So I would say hit rate on this one's not so good on the first image. Next one, we're getting better. We're seeing that it's coming off the back shoulders, off the feathers, and it's coming a little closer to the eye. And that one right there, it's completely on the eye and on the head. So this is probably a case where it went, you know, 2 frames on the body, the next one hit the eye. Let's keep going. Looking good. Still in the eye. I like the water dripping off the mouth. All looking good still. I'm looking for any frames are out. So that was that burst. So we're moving to the next one. I let off and hit it back again. Same bird, same spot. It looks like it's right on the eye. That's really good. So this plane of focus is on the eye, the chest, and you notice the front of the beak falls out and the shoulders fall off. So that plane is right across that head. Just great. So that was on the eye. Still on the eye, still looking good. All right. Only about 3 frames in that one. Let's go to the next one. We're looking really good right on that head. Again, focal plane on the eye. See the beak falling off and the shoulders fall off. So if you wanted the beak and the shoulders, then you would increase probably to about, on this bird, probably about f8 on this. And so you start thinking about these other lenses have been f8, f9. You can see why those aren't such a big deal. It's just about light gathering is a problem when you get to those higher apertures. Still in focus. Looking good. I was going back and forth there to see what it looked like. That one right there looks like it's losing it a little bit, but it's a little behind the eye, but it's still good. Okay, that one's out. Don't know where it's going. That's out. It's getting back in. That's back in. So about 2 or 3 of those are out. Still really good. Remember, we're shooting 20 frames a second in those bursts. 20 frames a second. So we saw the first couple body and then went to the head. Next subsequent burst we had, they're pretty good. Again, the bird's swimming towards me. That's really hard for the autofocus to keep up, but it looked like we had a few drift in and out. So we're probably 90–95% in those bursts that we looked at there. So now let's look at this mallard drake here. Remember we had this one. This is the very first autofocus where we saw it going from the background where it went into the bird. And you notice, remember, it hit the body, then it jumped to the eye in the EVF footage we had before. And that's what you're seeing here. In the very first image, you see that right here on these wings back here, this is where the focus is, right here on this body. And a little bit of the neck, a little bit right here. And the head, since it's back that way, doesn't have it yet. So we're going to watch these feathers, see when these feathers change and when they jump here. So 1 frame, 2nd frame still there. 3rd frame still there. 4th frame it's starting to shift out. Now it's out. Now it's here on the eye. So it's shifting here. Really crisp water droplets. They're getting a little softer, so we're getting really close right on that beak and almost the eye, and now we're on the eye. Yeah, so it's really good. So those 5, we had last 3 were on the eye, but the bird was in focus the whole time. So probably if you'd use like toe pads or something, it would have fixed the eye a little bit more, but very acceptable right there. All right, this is a cool one. So let's look here. So first one, dead on still dead on. Still, oh, that one. I think our focal plane's good. I think it's probably just motion blur because I see some blur here, but this feathers in here are really good. So I think we're still there. We're good there. Still good. Still good. Looks good. I want to show you this example here because this one is a really good example of how autofocus works on these cameras. So the first one, the back one's a little bit out of focus. The next frame is pretty close. 3rd frame, it's in focus. So let's keep going until I see it go out. Still in focus. Still in focus. A little soft there. A little bit softer. So now, the back duck is out of focus. What's happening is that autofocus is fixing to switch birds on me. So out, 2 frames, 3 frames. It's still trying to kind of look like it went a little bit back toward the back duck. Now it's moving to the front duck, and there we go. So there we go, in the front duck, and it stayed on the front duck. So about 3 or 4 frames as it switched ducks. So that was really good. So the hit rate on the 2-500, what is it? Well, I would say it's probably around 80% for the most part. It seems to lock on really well. We did see a couple times a little bit of drift in there. Now let's look at the 1-800 and its hit rate. All right, the very first frame is out. Second frame, really close. Third frame, dead on. This could have been an example of me hitting that autofocus and hitting that shutter right at the same time. So the first couple frames would be out. And it does happen from time to time. We get a little happy with the shutter button. Keep moving on, see how long we stay in focus. So far we're in. Haven't seen one out yet. Yeah, so that whole burst was in. It looks good. First 2 frames out, the rest are in. So we'll give that a 80% hit rate on the very first one, and that's probably my fault, not its fault. So let's move on to the next duck. So again, here's the frame, really close, like we had that one duck earlier. Let's get moving. So that is motion blur there. I can tell by the back stretch of the back feathers. That is also motion blur. And that one is not motion blur. Actually, it is not motion blur on this frame. So it was initially on this right eye of the duck. Then we got a little motion blur, still trying to be the right eye. And then it switched to the left eye because the left eye's in focus, the right eye's out. I thought it was out of focus. It's not. It's actually in focus on that side. That's really cool. So we're focused on that right eye instead of the left eye. We're in focus. We're in focus. It's going back to the left eye. And it's back to the left eye. But it didn't lose focus between. That looks like, no, it's fine. A little out there. Don't know why. Now he's really swinging his beak, but not too bad. We're in focus. These all look good. Looks good. So this is the next burst. It's the same bird. I let off the button, went back on the button here. Looks good. We're in focus. Just 3 frames there. Here's another burst. Same duck. This one's not losing the eyes at all. It's staying right there. Even when he's closing his eye with that membrane. What's really cool when they close their eyes, you see there they have a white little fuzzer. Even when they got their eye closed, look like their eyes are open. Okay, there's one that's out. So when that eye did that, the next frame is out, then it's right back when the eye opens. So that's interesting. Looks good. Synopsis on the hit rate on the 2 lenses. They're both really close. By using this lens and the 2-500, the 2-500 quite a while, I've had this, you know, a little over a month now, the 180-600, and I use it exclusively all the time, except for when I'm testing against the other lenses, they're both really accurate in the autofocus and the hit rate. But it makes sense why the hit rate is a little bit better on the 180-600 is with the 2-500, because this is a native lens, this is an adapted lens to the Z body. But they're really both really good. But again, the 180-600 is edging it out due to just being more modern, having the Z mount adapter versus adapted lens. But that's the way I see them right now as far as hit rate go. They're both very, very acceptable hit rate. This one just edges it out a little bit. Now let's look at the image quality and the color rendition of these 2 lenses. And first we're going to look at a couple of the ducks. So these are 2 mallard drakes. Actually, it's the same mallard drake going one direction and back the other direction. They're just a few feet apart and distanced away from me, as you can tell by the size of the image of the 2. They're both shot at back 500 millimeters. They're both at 1/500 The exposure is exactly the same. 2-500 is 5.6 aperture, and at 4000 ISO, the 180-600 is at 6.3 aperture at 5000 ISO. So the exposure is exactly the same with the ducks, and the lights come in exactly the same direction. One's facing one way or the other, but the lights hit them exactly the same. So let's look at these 2. So first we're going to look at, what I think about the image quality as far as, you know, how does the detail look on it? And so you look at the one on the left, the detail in the feathers is really, really good. Down to the head, the eye, everything looks great. The one on the right, once again, feather quality looks good and almost identical. I wish we could see a little bit of blue on the left one, but we can't, but you see it here, it looks really, really good. So image quality in both of them, I really don't see much difference in the image quality of the 2. They look really good for as far as the IQ of the 2. Now let's look at the color rendition of the 2. This is where, to me, the contrast and color rendition are really what makes these lenses, because that's where that's coming from. Because the exact same body, the lens is a little different with coatings and stuff like that. So let's look at these 2. All right, first let's look at the eyes here real quick. Let's look at the color in the eyes. And looking at the two, like I said, you can really tell these are exact same exposures and exact same angles and everything, because even the horizon in the eye and the trees look, you can see them all exactly the same. And I'll have to say, for as far as the colors in the eye, because the color of the eye is kind of a brown, reddish orange color, be honest with you, I think the one on the right, I think I like that color looks a little better. Like I said, exact same image, same duck, same exposure setting, so we can really look at those colors. And I think the one on the right looks a little bit, the one on the left looks a little more muted on those colors, and the one on the right looks a little more vivid. And let's look at the browns here and the burgundies and purples here and these neck feathers in the back. So it looks really good. Let's look at the other one on the right. I'll be honest with you, I think I like these colors better on the right than the left. Again, the colors on the right look a little more saturated in contrast than the one on the right. And it may just be a contrast thing between the two lenses too. The beaks, so we're looking at the yellows and the highlights and stuff. Again, I would say the left one looks a little more muted than the one on the right. It looks a little better as far as the color rendition. This looks like a more washed out yellow, and this is a more vivid yellow. This is actually the exact same duck, so there's no difference in the color. So if you had two ducks, you can see maybe there's difference in those beaks for the same duck. The neck feather color and the beak I like better on the right. As far as the greens go, they're almost identical in the greens here, and a little bit of blues that are in this. A little bit of the magenta purples in here look a little bit better here. These look a little, again, a little washed out, but the greens look identical in the two. So if I had to pick these two, which one, and this is nitpicking about the color rendition, I would say the one on the right is the one I like. What do you guys think? I mean, which one do you think you like the color rendition better on? Like I said, with YouTube, the compression may not be able to see what I'm seeing with my eye, but I think these colors here in the neck are a little better, and the beak is a little better, but the greens in the head or that, and the reds in the eye and stuff, I like better on the right. So let's reveal which one's which. So the one on the left is actually the 2 to 500. I didn't know which one was either. I had two. I picked them a day or two ago, so I didn't remember which one they were when I pulled them up. And the one on the right is the 180 to 600. So like I said, it is really small differences. But as far as the colors, again, I think I like that. And it may be that there's the contrast in the color rendition maybe a little better. And it may be why these two looks a little better to me. Let's look at a couple of these Raven pictures. The exposure on these is really, really close. They're both at 1/800th of a second. Of course, 5.6 versus 6.3 on that. And they're both at 500 millimeters. Okay, let's look at these two images, and their exposures again is pretty close to each other. They're both shot at 500 millimeters, 1/800th of a second, 1000 ISO on the 5.6 and 1250 on the 6.3 to get the exposure exactly the same. One bird is just a little bit closer than the other one, but other than that, they're same, again, same light, same angle, same everything. But what we're looking at is the bird, and we'll also look at the bokeh a little bit, because we can compare both bokehs, because the background, the blue, is exactly the same distance, and the black is exactly the same distance as the background. The background's the same, just the foreground where the bird was a little bit different. So let's zoom in here, look real quick. And as far as the eyes go, both look really good. What's funny, in both eyes, I can see me right there, right in the middle of their eye. That is really cool. As far as the feathers, the blacks, and you got blacks and blues in these feathers. There's both in this, and I would say with the blacks, because there's blacks and blue in this bird, they're really close. But I think I like the IQ a little better in the right by a touch, and I think I like the colors in the eye. They're pretty close. Again, I like the reds and the browns here. Now let's look at this bokeh we got here. So the bokeh and these lines, this looks really good. Even here looks really good. But what I really want to look at is this brown and this blue in here. It both look really good. I really couldn't tell you which one I favor more. That looks smoother, and I would almost think this is the 2-500 and this is the 180-600 just by the aperture, even though we're the same exposure. So let's see what's what here. So this one is, no, the one on the right's the 180-600. That's really interesting. I really thought this would be the 5.6 versus 6.3, but this is the 5.6. This looks great at this 5.6. I love all this little bokeh back here, and the bird is, both these birds are just crisp as all get out. Really, really nice. All right, let's move on. That surprised me. Now let's just look at these images from the Conservation Center visit real quick and just show you the different ones and tell you which one's which here. And this is the 2-500. Again, I mean, just great. All the sharpness, every little bit. The colors are very good. Again, what I'm noticing is in the browns and the reds, and even a little bit in the blues, they're a little more muted. The greens are probably about the same, but they're a little softer than the 180-600. Again, the bokeh in here looks fantastic. Let's move on. Again, this is the 2-500. Whoops. I'm shooting through a little bit of grass right here, so this way's a little hazy, I'm a little low. But again, the bokeh looks good. Again, you'll see this is almost that blue that was in that other picture with the 180-600, so kind of remember that. And this looks lighter than the other one. The other one looks a little richer to me in the blues. And like I said, I think it's a contrast thing in these two lenses. Let's move on. So this is the 180-600. See these blues? What I mean by they look richer to me. And oh, look, just all the detail these lenses are getting. I may tell you these lenses are not sharp. They're both extremely sharp. I mean, look at that one and this one. This is the 2-500. It is great. And why I don't worry about corners and the edges is because I usually soften those out anywhere they're bokeh to me. I don't really care about those corners. But yeah, this one looks fantastic. Like I said, okay, here's some of the greens. And again, I just think that the contrast is a little better. I think that's what it is. The difference of these two lenses, I think, is there's a little touch more contrast in this lens than this lens as far as the color addition of the lens itself. There's that raven with the blue, and you can see those blues to me are more rich than that one. See, it's a little more washed out than that. It looks richer. There's another 180-600. Again, the blues here look a little richer. This is actually another raven right here, and that's a raven right there, and that's part of the sky and stuff. But the eye looks great, looks incredible. Again, you can see me right there in the pupil of that eye. Another 180-600. This shows you how shallow the depth of field is when they get close to you. This is at 600 millimeters. This one is 1-800, 1250 ISO, 1/100 second, and the eye in this part of the head is all in, in that depth of field. The beak's a little away, so it's falling out, and the shoulder's falling out. That's how tight that depth of field gets, really small. Let's move on. Another 180-600. This is a raven behind it, and this is the beak of a raven over here, and the detail is just, to me, incredible. Beautiful, and that focus is right across the eye. All this is blurred, and the back of his head's even starting to fall off. And then I love all this bokeh. 180-600 again. I like it again. Again, this part of the head and the eyes, focal plane, and that beak's out. I love this bird in the background with the bokeh ball for where his eye is, and there's a beak of another one there. This is the 2-500. This is an elk, and good detail. Look at that. I think the color rendition looks good on that. Looks really good. This is the 180-600. Again, fantastic detail here. It's nice when we get a little bit of sun to shoot in. It makes it so much nicer. When I was coming back from Seward, I had good light, but once I finally got to the ducks, cloud cover rolled in. But really nice. It's nice to see a little star. It's a sun star in the eye. That's cool. And this is the 180-600, and the focus really loved these Sitka deer. Right on there, just did really well. It just looks great. So synopsis is, for the color rendition of these two, they're both great. Great color rendition, great image quality, extremely sharp, great detail. But I will say this one is a touch flatter than the new one is. And it may be that the coatings and stuff they did and the technology in the glass gives it just a touch more contrast. And that would make sense why those two look different, because exposure and the focal range is exactly the same. So that's that. So now we've covered the autofocus, the hit rate, and the image, color rendition, the image quality, things like that. Let's talk about cost now, because cost is a factor when we're looking at, do we upgrade, do we buy, which one do we buy, things like that. So let's break down the cost of these two to maybe help you decide which lens you would buy if you're going to look at the two or upgrading the lens. Now, the sale price of this lens used is anywhere from $750 to $800, $850, somewhere in that range, where I've seen it most of the time. So that's used if you buy it used. But if you want to buy it new, like a lot of us do, this lens new at retail is $1,399, $1,000, $399, so basically $1,400. You also have to buy the F to Z if you're using a Z mount lens, because if you're looking at these two, you're looking at Z cameras, because this is a Z lens. When you add that on there, that's $250. So if you bought this at retail, list price, no sales going on in this thing, you're now at $1,648. You're $50 cheaper is all you're saving if you're looking at these two lenses, which one you want at retail, right? So it'd be a no-brainer. Get the newer one, that's Z, so you don't have to have the adapter, things like that. But this lens right now, the 2 to 500, is actually on sale as we speak right now for the holidays. And it's listed at $1,095, so just shy of $1,100. So with the $250 here, you're at $1,345 basically for this one. So now you're at, let's see what's the difference in that. You're $300 difference between the two at sale price. So I don't know if that helps you decide, which lens to get if you're looking at your first affordable Nikon. A zoom lens, if you look at $1,600, $1,700 is affordable, that's where it is. So as they're priced today, there's $300 difference as this one's priced today with the adapter plus the lens on sale today. If you bought it here in November right now, that's what it runs, and this one's $300 difference. If you buy it when it's not on sale, you're $50 difference from the two. So pick that way. Now let's get into the conclusion, the wrap-up, synopsis of these two lenses, and who should buy, why you should buy, and all those things. We talked about cost just now. There's about a pound difference, just under a pound difference between these two lenses. To me, with the Nikon Z9, that 2/3 a pound, 3/4 a pound, to me is not that big a difference. But if you're running a lighter rig, then maybe you'll start to see that. So you're running like the Z8, the Z6, Z7, as opposed to not the Z9, you'll probably notice that difference a lot more than I do with the Z9. That when we get that 2/3 a pound with this big 4-pound camera body, because the camera weighs more than these lenses do. As far as the balance when you're hand holding these lenses, this 180-600 to me feels better balanced and using it in the hand. I don't know why, but it just kind of is. And another reason why I think it's balanced is when you have a real short zoom throw on this one versus this one has a longer throw, almost well over 2 times the amount of throw to get there. And then also when you extend this guy out, the balance gets all messed up. So if you're holding this lens and you zoom out, you notice it starts getting a little front heavy. So you'll notice that real quick there. So handling in the hands, it just feels better. The shorter throw, and when you do that throw, you don't get front heavy or back heavy. It's exactly, the weight feels exactly the same on it. And you can see that on the gimbal too when you get it perfectly balanced when you zoom in and out. These elements are so far that are moving are back here so far top of this foot that you don't get the movement. But on this 200 to 500, when you move it, you can really feel that that weight starts to go this direction in front of this foot collar. Another thing that the difference of these two is where the lens strap mounts are, because I carry, with these weight of these lenses, I carry my camera strap on the lens. So the 180-600 of course has these straps on the collar, 2 to 500 doesn't. So what you have to do is you've got to put your lens strap where the mounting hole, screw hole is, or 3/8 screw hole right here. And when you do that, you have to, if you need an Arca Swiss plate, you have to take the strap mount off, put the Arca Swiss on. If you got to go, you know, back off that strap, you got to take the Arca Swiss off, put that on. So that's a bit of a problem. There's probably some better ways to do it. If you know a way to do it, let me know. But that's the difference there in those two. And with the balance and stuff, we talked about this earlier in the video, using these on a gimbal, this 2 to 500, if you're working a fixed subject the same distance, you're okay because you can balance this gimbal. But if you need to zoom in and out on a gimbal, this 2 to 500 is kind of a pain in the butt to use versus the 180 to 600 because it's balanced no matter where you put it through the whole range, it'll stay balanced. The 180 to 600 does not have a way to turn the VR, the IS on and off, or change it from normal to sport on the lens. You have to go into the camera body or set a button up in here to change it here. On the 2 to 500, you can change it right on the lens real quickly with a switch. I find that a little better on the 200 to 500 over the 180 to 600 because anytime you have to go tinker with the body to change something, then that just takes away from the time you're shooting if you've got something going on right in front of you. Because the times you notice those that you need to turn it or change it, something's happening, and that's why you're changing it. The 180 to 600 also has the function buttons on it, which makes it a little more versatile, so you can assign those buttons to some type of camera function. You don't have that ability on the 2 to 500. The weather sealing on these two is supposed to be, I think, from what I understand and talking to the sales rep from Nikon, they're about the same as supposed to be as far as the main thing, but the better part of the weather sealing you're going to get on the 180 to 600 is it's internally zooming versus externally zooming, because as you zoom out and in, you can get dust or liquid sucked into the lens. I've never had it happen to me, but I've had people that have talked about it and told me about it, that it has happened to them. They've had to have the lens clean because dust and stuff got inside, or moisture. So the weather sealing to me is a little bit better on the 180 to 600 because it doesn't have that zoom out and zoom in function. As far as the aperture difference on these two, 5.6.63, that's only 1/3 of a stop. To me, that's not that big an issue, but you are at 5.6 at 500 and you're at 6.3 at 600. When you get around 480, then you get to f6 on this one. But you do get 100 millimeters extra throw out of this one at 6.3. So yes, at 500, you got a little better depth of field on the 5.6, you're at 500. But once you get to 600 on this one, now you got a better depth of field. And I think by having that extra 100 millimeter throw is much better than that 1/3 stop of light, really. We went through the AF acquisition, the image quality, the hit rate, and all those. And the 180 to 600 to me on those three categories we covered, that does edge it out just a touch. But the image quality on both these is fantastic. So you are going to get a little bit better out of this one, but is it something that you're going to really, you know, it's, at the end of the day, it's going to drive you nuts? No, because you can change that little bit of contrast or color in Lightroom when you post-process if it's not exactly what you want. Or sometimes this may be a little richer than you want and you want to tone it down. It depends on what your style is or what your color rendition that you like to see. For me, I liked it better on this one than the 2 to 500. So conclusions, both lenses are great. The autofocus speed, the hit rate, the color rendition on both these lenses are excellent. I've always thought that this 2 to 500 outkicked its price by a long shot. But the 180 to 600 is truly, truly to me an upgrade over that 2 to 500. That extra 100 millimeters of reach, the modern glass, the new tech that's in it, the lens strap mounts, the internal zoom, native mount, making it for a little touch to me better IQ and AF acquisitions, and a fairly affordable price point. If you say $1,700 is affordable price range, it makes this 180 to 600 to me a good upgrade from the 2 to 500. If you own neither of these lenses and you're in the market for the two, which lens would I suggest, or what I would do if I didn't have either one? Which one I buy? Well, I would buy the 180 to 600, especially if it wasn't on sale, the 2 to 500. Even with this at $300 difference on sale, I probably would still stick with buying the 180 to 600. Why? Well, it's a more modern lens. It's native mount. I like the balance and things on it better. I just think overall, you're going to get more out of this lens you're going to get out of this lens. That extra 100 millimeters of throw, that's the big one too. So if I had neither one of them, I'm going to pick the two. even if it was on, this one's on sale, the $300 difference, I'd probably still go with this lens, the 18600. Now, if you currently own the 2-500 and you're thinking about upgrading the 180 to 600, should you upgrade? That's what probably a lot of people are thinking about while they're watching this video. And my question is, do you need to upgrade? Do you really need to upgrade because this exists, you have this lens? I would say no, because the image quality, color rendition on these things is so very, very close. The performance of this lens, the 2-500, is great. Really, really good. But yes, you are going to get a little bit more out of this guy, and you are going to get another big thing, which is 100 millimeters extra throw and the internal zooming of the lens. Those things right there are the big difference between these two lenses right now. The image quality, said, like the autofocus, both of them is really good. Color rendition is really good. I've taken a ton of phenomenal shots with this lens, the 2-500, and I've also taken a lot of good shots with this one. So if you've got the money, and that's not the issue, then yeah, upgrade to this one all day long and trade that one in. With all the other pluses I talked about in this lens versus this one, I would say yes, upgrade. And I personally think that most Nikon shooters should have this lens in their bag. Really, this lens plus whatever your favorite prime is, the 600 f4, 400-2.8, that 600 PF, 800 PF, plus this lens, you're pretty much covered. This is the lens you run around when you're really not exactly sure what you're going to be shooting, how far away from you're going to shoot it. But when you know the distance of the animal, the birds, and you know your 600 or your 800 is going to be the lens to go with, that's the two I'd take out with me. You have two lenses in your bag, you're pretty much covered, and maybe a 7200 sitting in there, you know, or a wide angle. But this lens is fantastic. This is still a great lens, a 2-500, but I really think this one edges it out. And this lens, to me, be honest with you, really has surprised me. It has done a ton more. I thought it would be a good lens. I didn't think it would be as good as it is and how much I enjoy using it. I really enjoy using this range to 600 and the snappiness and quality and the balance and everything like that. This lens is just fantastic to me. I really, really like it. So I hope that answers some of your questions. I hope maybe this gave you another insight or just another view of these two lenses together. There's a lot of videos, I'm sure, out there talking about different pairs of lenses, but that's what I've seen. That's the examples I have. And I hope it helped you out a little bit. And if it did, and you're liking the channel and the content, please subscribe, all those fun things. We do have some Christmas giveaways coming up. I've got 3 items for sure that I've got on hand that we're going to do a review video of them and then talk about how to enter them sometime in mid to late December. Once we hit 10,000, which hopefully we'll hit 10,000 by mid-December. That's just blowing my mind. And once we get there, we'll do that. And until next time, guys, get outside, go run that shutter.